Hey peeps, welcome into another edition of Morning Scone, Hump Day edition, where the Pels season comes to an end, and a little more fallout and conversation from Mark Ingram's 4-game suspension that I want to get into here today. As always, please hit the red subscribe button down there if you have not yet done so. I appreciate it greatly, and we are presented by Get Signed, digital autograph app for your smartphone. SYND. Please download it in your Apple, iTunes, or Google Play or App Store. I would appreciate it very greatly. So let me start with the Pels, the most immediate thing. The season came to an end last night. They lose to the Warriors 113-104. If you didn't stay up to watch the game, no fret, no fear. I did. Right out the chute, man, they were really competitive and led early. It was a 6-point game at the end of the first quarter with Golden State up 32-26. So the Pels avoided the disastrous start that plagued them in Game 4. And then they actually won the second quarter, 30-27. And the Pels went on this little spurt with under 2 minutes to go in the first half. They hit a couple of big threes, and AD had a big alley-oop dunk, and they're up 5, and you're thinking, man, they're going to go into halftime with the lead. And then the Warriors did what the Warriors do, and they went on like a 9-0 run, and Golden State went into half actually with a small lead, a 3-point lead at half. And I remember I tweeted last night like, well, I guess I'm staying up to midnight, guess I'm staying up for all 4 quarters, and then right out the chute in the second quarter, or the second half, Golden State just sprinted out the gate. They won the third quarter 36-19, and by then it was all over. They were pulling starters, and New Orleans made it look better at 113-104 than it really was. Golden State only scored 18 points in the fourth quarter, but largely their starters were resting, and it was all over at that point. AD had another monster night with 34 points and 19 rebounds. He was awesome, and he needed to be. But we said yesterday on the show that for New Orleans to win this game, it was going to take one of those efforts where Davis has 45 and 20, something like that. Well, he had 34, and they lost by 8. So, no, 9. Yeah, I was right. Sorry, it's early. Math. Hashtag math. But another 10 points by AD, it's easy to say may have done it. But look, the fact of the matter is when Golden State plays like that, no one's going to beat them. Not Houston, not Cleveland, not anybody. And it's a reminder that they're the best team on the planet, probably the best team ever assembled, with 2 MVPs, and oh, by the way, Klay Thompson, and oh, by the way, Draymond Green, and oh, by the way, look at the rest of their bench and all the valuable pieces they have that they can rely on when they need it. And it's just another illustration of the difference between the regular season and the postseason. The Pels beat Golden State near the end of the regular season out there in Oakland. If you remember, Golden State was scuffling late when Curry was injured, and I remember exchanging texts with a friend who actually, I'll tell you who it is. It was Josh Ennis. And, of course, Josh works in Houston, and he does the morning show there. It's a top 5 market, and Houston's great. The Rockets are great. And he was texting me near the end of the regular season that the Warriors are unimpressive, was his text to me. And I'm like, hey, man, watch it, because you kind of see the difference. And you see it like with LeBron in Cleveland now, too. He played all 82 games this year, but he's averaging 42 minutes in the postseason. It's just a different gear. You see it in different sports every year. Like you see it in the NFL whenever there's just a different gear from preseason to regular season to postseason, because there's an urgency. And after New Orleans punched Golden State in the mouth in Game 3, it was kind of their wake-up, and, you poke the bear. But for New Orleans, if you're just encapsulating the whole season, to win 48 games was awesome. To get back into the playoffs, I mean, you look at them as a 6 seed, but at 48 wins, it's not a traditional 6 seed. I mean, the 8 seed had been kind of hovering around 500 in the West the past few years. To win 48 games and be the 6th seed is absurd, but they were 1 game behind Portland, who was the 3. So it goes to show you that you've got Houston and Golden State, and then this clump of about 8 teams that really there's not much separating them. But what you saw here in this postseason series is, all right, well, they swept Portland, so there's certainly separation there with how those 2 teams are constructed right now. And they at least put up a fight against Golden State. They won a game. They played them close a couple of times. I mean, they're certainly not ready to beat Golden State in a best of 7, but you go into this offseason, maybe from the strongest negotiating or selling point, if you're Dell Demps, that you've had since you've been in New Orleans. because Anthony Davis is a bona fide superstar, as you can see. Drew Holiday, when healthy, is playing at an all-star caliber level. Nico Mirotic has changed the dynamic of this team with perimeter shooting and more length on the perimeter, who can also go down low and bang if you need him to. And I think you're going to, I think they're going to, well, obviously they want to re-sign Boogie, and they should. And for all those concerned about what that does and that dynamic of the team, that they're better without Boogie, I'm going to keep harping on this. They didn't have Mirotic when Boogie was around. And Mirotic changed the dynamic of the team offensively. So you add Boogie to that mix, then all of a sudden you've got 3 superstars on your team with Cousins, Davis, and Drew Holiday. And if you can go, and then of course you've got someone like Mirotic who's been fantastic. And if you can go add another all-star caliber piece this offseason, then all of a sudden you're in that conversation. You may not be better than Golden State because you don't have Curry and Durant. But the way you're constructed, you're at least in the conversation to play a style of basketball that they're going to have to think about how they want to defend. So I'm really optimistic. I'm hesitant to even say the name Kawhi Leonard. I know there's a lot of people who are thinking that might be possible. And if you're Kawhi and you've played in small market San Antonio, albeit the model franchise in the NBA for the last 20 years, maybe he wants to go to a big top 5 market. Maybe he just wants to go somewhere where he feels like he can continue winning. God help us if he ends up going to Golden State and makes that work. But maybe Kawhi is one of those guys that you can lure. You can say, hey, look, we got AD, we got Boogie, we got Drew, we got all these pieces. We swept the series against Portland. We're right there against Golden State. We need someone with a championship pedigree who can give us more scoring from the wing and defense from the wing. And you're it. And and if you had Kawhi Leonard, then I hesitate to even say it because I might put that at like a 20% likelihood, and that might be generous. But if you do, then all of a sudden, you got action. So just a great season for New Orleans, man. An amazing bounce back to make the playoffs, to sweep a series, first time in a decade, to get people rallied around the team, and to feel like for the first time in a long time, you're not playing for the lottery, you're playing for the future. Like the future feels like it's imminent. So that's a really cool feeling right now. The other big news yesterday, there's a lot. I mean, yesterday was a massive day. Of course, LSU's retiring Jerry Stovall's jersey. LSU football apparently is in the mix for quarterback Joe Burrow out of Ohio State. We talked about him yesterday, but LSU was formally granted permission to talk to him. But the other thing that I wanted to talk about was Mark Ingram. So Mark Ingram has been suspended for the first 4 games of 2018 because of a failed PED test. So he can go through off-season workouts. He can play in the 4 preseason games, but he can't play in the first 4 regular season games. So that means Ingram's out until week 5 against the Washington Redskins. Now, of course, you've got Alvin Kamara, who was the NFL Offensive Rookie of the Year. And maybe this is just going to be Kamara's opportunity to show that he can be the bell cow. Because I don't really think the Saints really are tickled with the options they have behind Kamara. They got Trey Edmonds, who was the undrafted rookie free agent, and they got Jonathan Williams, former Arkansas running back Jonathan Williams. So they got a couple of bodies back there that can maybe take carries. But you look at the free agent market of running backs right now, and I can't help but think, is there someone that you can just, for lack of a better phrase, pluck off the trash heap and bring them in for 4 weeks and say, hey, look, I don't need you to be what you were in your prime, but just give me 10 carries of max effort for 4 games and help us win. I mean, you look at this list, DeMarco Murray is still out there. Eddie Lacy at 27 years old is out there. I mean, if you just think of what Mark Ingram is, another Alabama running back, but just that sort of stocky, kind of bowling ball type, can get you tough yards between the tackles, has shown some explosive ability here in the last couple of years. I mean, if Eddie Lacy can be moderately in shape and give you 10 carries a game to get you tough yards to take some of that load off of Alvin Kamara, I'm kind of for it, man, especially when guys like that don't have a great negotiating stance right now because, they're unsigned. Adrian Peterson, Shane Vereen, Danny Woodhead, Jamal Charles is still unclaimed right now. He's 31 and he's had injuries. But could you get 4 games out of these guys? Alfred Morris. There's a lot of CJ Spiller. There's a lot of really accomplished running backs that are free agents right now. And again, you don't need someone to be your RB1. You don't need someone to be your bell cow over the course of 16 games. You need someone for 4 weeks, for the first month of the season, to come in, just be in shape, and carry the ball 10 times a game for you to give Kamara a blow and feel like you still got some explosive ability there. So I'm going to be really interested to see what the Saints do, and I would strongly endorse bringing in one of those free agent running backs. Because, look, the other guy I didn't mention, aside from Edmonds and Jonathan Williams, is Boston Scott, who, of course, Zachary High kid who went to Louisiana Tech, who they drafted in the 6th round. Boston Scott is built similarly to Kamara. I mean, he's a smaller guy, the 5'8", sort of 185, 190 kind, and he's got great maneuverability. But I think they took him to help in the return game, maybe catching the ball out of the backfield, add that dimension. So it'll be interesting to see what Boston Scott can do when he gets into camp. But again, I don't think that's I know that's not the dimension that Mark Ingram brought to the offense. So just keep some of those names in mind as far as free agent running backs and guys that the Saints might be able to pursue here in this offseason as they lead up to training camp. There's a lot of really accomplished guys that are later in their career, but probably still have some tread on the tire that they might be able to go pursue to fill that void while Mark Ingram serves his suspension. The other thing is, hey, Ingram, kick rocks, clown. What are you doing? You kidding me? 4-game suspension for PED use when you're 29, you're going into a contract year. It was the last year in Ingram's career. He was holding out. He wanted a longer deal so he didn't hit free agency next offseason, and you get popped for PEDs? No thanks. I'm good, thanks. So you can play out the string and then you can take a walk and dress running back next year, especially when you got Kamara. If ever there was a point where you had no negotiating power, no chance, no margin for something like this, it's right now, Mark. But anyway, thanks for your service and all that stuff. That's going to do it for this edition of Morning Scone. Hit the red subscribe button. Check out our friends at Signed, GETSYND. Y'all have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow.